Well, and in this tutorial I'm gonna talk about TDD. What is TDD? TDD means test driven development, and it's very one of the most important concept that you have to understand if you are developing Android application or any kind of applications, for also iOS or Android or anything. But I'm gonna focus my TDD, test driven development, specifically for the Android application development. Okay, to understand what is TDD, we have to understand the use case scenario when we are gonna develop a Android application. This application is a very simple calculator application consisting of functionality like adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. Right. So when you have to develop create this application, what will be your usual approach? The normal approach that every developers will try to do is this normal approach is they will try to build their UI first and their activity. Then they will try to create the calculator. Then you will try to create write the unit test for your calculator class. Okay, the calculator class consisting of all this functionality like add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And then finally you will write your activity class test or UI test, right? So this is the normal scenario. Okay, normal approach for like that is used by every developers. Okay, but what is a TDD approach? That is a test driven development approach, which is very fundamental and very important concept. And what is this approach? What is the difference between our normal approach? The normal apart from the normal approach, like the difference is you don't write your UI, but you write your UI test first, okay, with your scenarios first. Okay, so to achieve this you can also create a skeleton UI to avoid compile time errors. Okay, so after you will write your UI test, you would also need to write your unit test or calculator class test, testing all these functionalities, right? Add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Then you obviously after writing your test you will run your test. Then the test will obviously fail because you have not added any implementation, right, for your calculator class. Then you will force yourself to implement your code until you pass all your failing test. Okay, so this is the approach. And then you pass all your calculator test, that is a unit test first. Then you pass all your UI tests for your activity or fragment, whatever UI components that you are using. Okay, so this is the scenario, this is the approach actually for your TDD. Okay, test driven development actually. So okay, obviously you will be asking that why should I use TDD? What is the difference between doing this and this one, right? Normally you will ask a question, why should I do this one, right? Because if you use TDD approach, there are some advantages. Okay, and the advantage is it will take less time for you to spend writing code, because you will ensure that your code is testable, and you need to write only the amount of code necessary for the test to pass, right? So you will just use this limited time to like less time to spend writing a code, because you will ensure that your code is testable, right? Because obviously you are going to write test first. Okay, and there are fewer bugs because you are trying to observe each and every scenarios first, right? You will write a test for each and every scenarios first. Then you are gonna pass. You are gonna change your code until the test passes. So there are gonna be less bug, right? So this is the advantage why we are using a TDD approach. Okay, and this is very fundamental and important, guys. So I suggest you to always do the TDD approach. And I will also show you some a diagram which is a TDD cycle. And in this TDD cycle, what you see is like there is a process, and it's a very cyclic process. And what you should understand, the note is, you always start from the point where you fail your test, and it keeps on repeating until you finish your development process, right? And whenever you write add a new functionality, you always start with the failing test, then you know you will just develop until you pass your test, right? You know, it's very pretty much on the cyclic, and it's like a cyclic process. And it's always the most important point is you always start with the failing UI test. Okay, so this is the starting point, right? Okay, so by saying that, we can, how can we understand the TDD is obviously we need to do some examples, right? I'm gonna give you some cool I'm gonna write an example. So what we are gonna do is we're gonna write a simple class to calculate the sum of numbers, and I will try to do it in a TDD approach so that you will understand it much better practically. Okay, so I would try to explain you much in a practical manner. So we're gonna write a class which is called adder to add the numbers. Okay, and okay, let's go and let's close this, and let's focus on this class. So our focus is to, we will gonna create a class that's adder that adds the number, and it adds the number. How does it adds the number? Okay, there are actually three this class has to satisfy three criterias. One is for n, if the number n is less than 0, then it will should return -1. This is the first criteria. Okay, let me write the criterias. Criteria 1. Okay, 1, if n is less than or equals to 0, return -1. Okay, the second criteria should be able to return the correct values for int max value okay. And what's the third criteria is function should be quick, even for int max value. Okay, so this is the criteria, guys. Okay, so it has to satisfy this criteria. Okay, as I said you, in the test driven approach, what we do is obviously we write the test first. So this is our class. We're gonna write, we have not done any implementation, you know, it's like just returning a default value. Okay, so just take a note of this concept, right? You know, it's pretty much returning, it's empty, it's not returning anything, it's just pretty much some kind of an empty box, you know. So then we first concept of 3DD is writing a test, right? So I'm gonna write a test. Obviously it's a unit test, so it's gonna lie on a unit test folder. So okay, so now we have this what's happening here? Okay, so we're gonna write our test now, right? So let me run the test again. Actually nothing is running anymore. Okay, so we have to write our test. So we so let's write the test for each and every scenarios that we have the criterias, like we have the criteria, right? So to test all these criterias, we have to try to create all the possible test cases, right? So let's write a private let's create the instance of our adder class. Okay, and then for some, let's sort equals like okay, adder dot sum. let's pass the number 1, okay, as an input. And okay guys, how is gonna add the number? Okay, so just be careful that the our adder function will okay, actually what is how it is going to sum. The sum is going to happen in this situation is it will return the sum function will return the sum of numbers from 1 to n. Okay, so it will return the sum of numbers from 1 to n. Okay, whatever number you pass, you return from 1 to n. Okay, so that's it. And like we will try to check the code for all the possible scenarios. So let me just duplicate it. So what if like pass 3, it will be the sum of 2 will be 3, sum of 10 will be like 55, you know, sum of 20 will be like 210, sum of like int max value will be like it can be have some values, right? 2 3 0. Okay, I'm gonna just fix it at later on. Some int out of range. Okay, so yeah, maybe this is the value. So actually this is we will try to create two cases. Actually, some will be success test, and okay, also there is another scenario where we will try to check for failure test, right? Failure test, we will try to give any failing numbers, right? Like obviously the sum of these are all true numbers. I have to just recheck this one, but if you sum up to 20, it will got 210. That's correct. But I want to now write a failing test. If you run 0, if you add sum of 0, it's gonna give you -1. That is failing. Also, if you add sum of -1 is failing, you know. And if you add 2 and it's returning also -1, that's also a failing situations, right? So we are trying to write a failing situations here, right? So okay, now the second step is to run this test, right? If everything is working fine or not. So actually I will try to run the entire test and see if the test is failing or passing. In both the scenarios it's failing, because obviously our adder class is pretty much returning a default values, right? So now we will modify our code so that the test will pass. So what we have to do, we have to change it. Obviously it's gonna also return a long number, so obviously it's not returning int anymore, it's have to return a long, and our result is okay, has a default value of 0 for I in 1 to n. We return result plus equals I, okay, the index, and we return the result, right? Okay, so now we will rerun the test with our modification of the code. Let's see what's happening here. Some success test. Okay, actually there is expected, actually is this one, actually this is the value. So I'm like a little modifying this one because obviously I want to make sure that this is the value, right? So now we will rerun the test. Okay, as you can see, my success test is passing, so that means this function is pretty working fine, right? But I still have some other scenarios, like some failure tests are also not like passing. So how can I fix this, right? Because actually you know, like sum of 0 should return a -1, but it's not returning it, right? Sum of -1 is also -1, it's not returning, right? And actually no, this is not the situation, sorry guys. Okay, so this should be actually also returning true for the failing situations. Like if you check out, if n is less than or equals to 0, it will return -1, right? Less than 0 means 0, and -1 is going to return -1. 2, it also should return -1, right, for any situations like this one. So now the test is failing because actually you are getting 0 as a value, but you are expecting -1, right? So how to fix this situation now? To fix this, we have to change our code. So we have to now optimize our code to deal with the situations. So how can we optimize the code? So we can optimize this code by applying a formula. The formula will be pretty simple. So it will return n into n to long plus 1 divided by 2. Okay, so this is the formula. And if you rerun, still we have failing situations. Now we have to focus on our failing situations, that is like n should be so we have to also check if n is greater than 0. You do this modification, right? You apply this this formula, otherwise there is no sense. Else divide by 2, else you should return -1. Okay, actually, okay, so yeah, this is our formula. So we will have two conditions. If n is greater than 0, then apply your formula, otherwise always return -1. So now if we rerun the test should pass. Yeah, okay, so we have successfully able to get the pass the success situation and also the failure situation, right? So you have to write this test in this kind of situation, like following this kind of approach, you know, the test driven approach. So yeah, finally we were able to entirely cover the code with each and every situations, right? So this is the real benefit. So we can have now as you can see, if you run the test runs pretty less time. It just took 2 milliseconds to run these two tests with all these conditions, and like it's covering both the success situations and also the failure situations, right? So yeah, this is the fundamental and the most important concept that you have to know if you are developing Android application, guys. So hope this concept is very useful for your Android application development, and thank you very, very much, and please do subscribe, share or like, and you know, like press the bell icon. And if you have any questions, just comment me and you can ask me any questions, guys, and please support, guys. Thank you, guys.